Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing here, giving you a personal prediction for Roman Gonzalez versus Julio Cesar Martinez. And as always, this is just my take. Yours, of course, can be left down in the comments section below. Would love to hear them all. A little bit of fight info here. We have Gonzalez versus Martinez, as mentioned, taking place at the PECHANGA Arena in San Diego, California. This will be airing live on DAZN and taking place in the junior bantamweight division. And this is a very, very solid fight. About as good as fights get when you're dealing with a late replacement foe. Originally, Gonzalez was to face longtime rival Juan Francisco Estrada in the third installment of their epic rivalry. But due to Estrada having to pull out, we have hard-hitting titleist Martinez moving up and taking the giant opportunity, replacing his fellow three-named fighter. And again, as far as replacement bouts go, this is about as good as you're going to get it. It should be brutal and it should be action-packed and fairly hard to predict for a couple of reasons that we will be getting into, so without much more ado, let's break this one down. Now, for Gonzalez to win, I think he needs to keep the left hook busy. Now, that doesn't just mean throwing the left hook upstairs or downstairs per se. It just needs to be something that he's landing with regularity, or at the very least attempting to land. It's a very solid shot for him. It's one that, from a positional perspective, it's going to be easier for him to land, especially because Martinez tends to have his hands down. And while he doesn't want to necessarily hook with the hooker in Martinez, both of them kind of have run that same risk because, again, Martinez is moving up. So whether or not he has the stronger punch pound for pound, he is giving up a little bit of size here, and that could kind of equal things out. If you're Gonzalez, however, because your punches tend to be a little more compact, a little shorter, and you can throw those shots to the body as well as the head, just like anyone else, or as well as anyone else can, it's certainly going to be something you're going to want to look to do in this fight, kind of land first, hit that mark first, and you can eventually build upon that as the fight progresses. I would also say allow your combinations to flow. What I mean by this is not just throwing them, but allow them to come out naturally. Let them build, and as the fight is progressing, you're an older fighter now. You're entering your mid-30s at a lower weight division. For Gonzalez, that's pretty old. He's also been in some decent fights here at this point in his career, so the wear and tear is adding up. You don't want to come out firing on all cylinders, in my opinion. You just want to build into that fight and let those combinations especially build as you move along in the fight, and of course begin to put more of that punishment together. Martinez as well is going to start showing you what opportunities you can exploit, and with a fighter that is skilled like Gonzalez, you can then use that information to make him pay as the fight progresses, and of course have more chances for success. And finally, push Martinez back. I think that's going to be important. It could be as simple as a jab. It could be simply leaning on him with your shoulder into his chest and just kind of pressing him up against the ropes. But you have to use whatever potential size advantage is there. If one does exist, you have to utilize it. And Martinez is significantly less effective when he's going backwards. To some degree, both of these fighters are, but I would think that Gonzalez, because of his work rate, his accuracy, and again, his potential size advantage here, he has the best chance of pushing his man back and utilizing that possibility to his advantage. Continue to push forward, take a little bit of the stuff off of Martinez's shots, and you're going to give yourself the best chance for success. Now, for Martinez to win, I think he needs to land a big shot early. It doesn't have to be a single shot per se, but some shot that gets home, that lands with authority, that lets Gonzalez know Martinez can carry his power, and even if it's not necessarily lights out power, it's respectable enough power that Gonzalez has to be wary of it. This, I think, will be important for Martinez to be able to eventually impose his style on the fight. If he's backing up the whole fight and not really able to land that particular shot, barring some maybe, kind of home run shot or having Gonzalez walk into something, and if he's not able to really do it from a technical standpoint of just getting that shot home, he's going to have a really hard night on his hands because Gonzalez is not going to give any ground in this fight. Especially if you look at his most recent fights, he's shown no real signs of slowing down. I mean, he just went to war with Estrada in a brutal, in my opinion, fight of the year winner from last year. If that version of Gonzalez shows up and Martinez hasn't the ability to show he can hurt him, he's in for a long night. So I think that should be one of his kind of more important goals that he sets for himself early in the fight. I would also say keep your hands up more often. I know Martinez has a tendency to kind of let his hands drop and kind of lunge in with those shots, but again, with someone who's as accurate as Gonzalez, who punches pretty damn hard, who has an ability to land with frequency and throw combinations, you just can't do that. He has to be more respectful of what his opponent can do, the power and the skill that he presents. Again, does this mean change your style entirely? No, you can potentially take that step back from time to time to kind of reset and kind of drop your hands, get the blood flowing to your arms once again, but can you consistently come in looking to lunge in with that left hand, or come in with your chin up a little bit too much, or swinging a little more around the guard when Gonzalez is looking to cut you off and hit you with those shortcut punches? That's just going to spell doom for Martinez in this fight. Keep the guard up a little bit more, and when you're on the inside, then you can kind of get more into that Martinez bag. But until then, protect yourself more. You're going to need to in this fight to be successful. And finally, and this might be true for both fighters, but for Martinez, especially considering he's at a new weight, I would say build into the fight. You don't want to just go in there thinking that you're going to be able to do to Gonzalez what you've done to people at flyweight, for example. That's just not necessarily going to be the case. It might be. You might carry your power. You might grow into your power like a lot of fighters do when they move up. However, to assume it against a highly skilled operator like Gonzalez, who, if he brings what he can to the fight, is going to be the hardest fight of Martinez's career, I just don't think that's necessarily the best move. Again, allow yourself to feel his power, see what it's like, see what it feels like, see what it feels like to carry that weight a couple of rounds into a fight. Then you can start assessing how much you should be putting into your shots into each round, and you can build into it more successfully, pushing on the gas, maybe pressing him back if you have the capability to do so, and then start really putting in some damaging work as the fight progresses. Now, in terms of my pick here, this is a tight one and a fairly hard to predict one as well, especially because the perceived favorite in Gonzalez has looked vulnerable in fights not too far into his past. He's even been stopped. It's not as though he is the once perceived unstoppable force that he once was at the lower weights. Still, my gut tells me Gonzalez pulls off the win. I think both will look to feel each other out at first for different reasons, with Gonzalez wanting to not overlook Martinez and see what he has to offer first, and Martinez wanting to see what this new weight feels like and what these punches feel like and so on and so forth, especially because he was hurt in his most recent fight as well. So he's going to want to kind of see what this weight feels like. However, they will eventually get more into the mix, as that is their nature. They are going to fight, and they're going to start doing some real good exchanges in there, especially as the middle rounds become more of the story. The downfall for Martinez, in my opinion, will be his defensive dips and his inability to keep his hands up for large stretches. Against a combination puncher with solid power like Gonzalez, that's trouble. Really know the way to point that finger. It's really going to be trouble. Gonzalez is 34 and sub 135 pounds, so he could always age overnight. Smaller fighters age like pears, just the way it works. However, I think his more accurate shots and combinations, being a little tighter with his possible size advantages, will begin to punish Martinez and eventually stop him with left hands probably starting off the damage in those middle frames. Again, anything can happen in this fight. There are very close odds we'll get into, but I do see that happening, which is why I'm going with Gonzalez via mid-fight stoppage. Could be later, but I'll stick with the mid-fight stoppage. Now, the betting odds, as I mentioned here, are pretty close for this fight. You have Gonzalez at a favorite, only slightly at a minus 145, with Martinez coming in at a plus 115 as the slight underdog, effectively an even money bet for Martinez. And if you're interested in gambling here, either of those selections, quite honestly, is pretty attractive an option. I personally think that Gonzalez should be a slightly higher favorite, and I think he would be if he was 2 years younger. But at the same time, I understand why they're giving Martinez the benefit of the doubt. At flyweight, he has more or less looked dominant against everyone. So it remains to be seen how he will adapt to the weight increase, but for the most part, I see why they're giving him the benefit of the doubt, but still giving Gonzalez a slight nod. I do feel pretty confidently about Gonzalez winning, however. I do think he's just a slightly better fighter, slightly more accurate, again, has a little more of the size advantage, a little more experience. I just don't see him necessarily losing this fight. But of course, now that I've said that, I'm sure I've jinxed him. In any event, those odds are pretty good both ways. I wouldn't lay a huge bet either way, especially on Gonzalez, because you're getting slightly less value in that bet. But I wouldn't be not confident laying a bet on Gonzalez in this fight, and probably will do so this weekend. So, I mean, you do have some thought as to, kind of what money you want to lay down there, because there are some relatively attractive options there for you. In any event, my prediction record heading into the weekend for this year is 8-1-0 with 2 exact. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. How good do you think this fight's going to be? What do you think about the odds and who are you picking? Any bets you're laying down? Would love to hear all that down there in the comments section below. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB, and you can email me at jonboxing@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out jonboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, and more. Just updated the schedule over there, so definitely check that out. I got to think pretty much through May so far, so it's a really good schedule, and it's definitely packing full so far. Of course, be sure to check out my fighter grade series later this week that I will be releasing, and as always, until next time.